Hey, Internet. It's Saturday morning. It's 6:06 a.m. I don't know if you're awake. I don't know. It's hard to know. I mean, I normally would not be, except for that I have become so. Yes, not just today. It's kind of crazy. I would never have thought I would become the guy to get up and do this. I hate getting up. I've always hated getting up, but something happened in the last couple of months that really kind of radically impacted that. Maybe I'll talk about that another time. But it just shifted it. So I'm waking up, which is cool. It's cool. I really enjoy it. And so we've been doing the Saturday morning chill thing, Q&A. You ask, I answer about, well, anything. Not anything, but a lot of things. And of course, the Bible being part of this. And last week we did it at 7, had a good number of you on by 8. I'd love to do 2 hours, but I can't go from 7 to 9 on a Saturday morning. I'm sorry. I want a Saturday too. And so we're trying 6 this morning. So somebody's here. Don't know who you are. But yeah. What I'm going to do is at least start with a viewer question that would normally get its own kind of show. And then if you want to chime into the comments with your own questions, I know there were a bundle of them last week that were pretty good. Then we can pick up on some of those. Otherwise, I'll just have to go searching for other questions from the pile. So what's up, Chris? How you doing? Do you sleep, man? You can't possibly sleep. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. All right, so where we're going to dig in first, one viewer, one like, 6 a.m., Saturday. Love it. Where we're going to start first is right here with Rachel. And I don't remember what I said previously that got Rachel to ask this question. This has been sitting in the pile for a while. I could show you my pile. It's too big. It happened very quickly. Back in the old WeTV days, we had a big pile too, and it just got bigger and bigger. It's like, oh, I want to go back. Where and you can't find your way back through them. But this happened very quickly now. You're sending great questions through the revfist.com/contact page, and I'm trying to catalog them. I'm trying to catch them all. I'd love to respond to everything. Oh my goodness, there's a lot. So maybe we'll just kind of plug through some today, although it's a little tough to find them and go at the same time. So prepping for your 7 a.m. class on the threefold work of the Spirit. Well, Chris, that is interesting to me. Can you tell me what the threefold work? Are you talking about? This is convict the world according to righteousness, judgment, and what's the third one? Is that the one, the John passage? Cool. That's cool. Not really a dogmatic distinction, right? Maybe it is. I don't know. It really is about law and gospel, right? According to judgment, law, righteousness, gospel, Jesus, and then what's the last one? What's the third one? No, I can't get it off the top of my head. So cool. You're teaching, I assume, a small group Bible study over coffee or something like that. Yeah. You know what I discovered recently? It's so good. Yeah, the John passage. You know what I discovered recently? That is, I knew it existed, but I didn't know. I didn't know. I couldn't know. Jordan, we were at 7. I think I said in my podcast this week I was going to go at 6. We're going to go 6 to 8 this morning. I can't go 7 to 9, so we're going to go 6 to 8 this morning. And I meant to tweet it last night, and life's life. So I discovered, and I don't even know if I'm going to say it right. Like, I made the people at Starbucks tell me about this. Like, I'm like, now you're going to tell me what to call this and how to order this in the future, because it's really better than anything else. Well, I mean, I'm sorry. Nitro cold pour is better than anything else, but it's not cheap, right? And it is not something you really, well, you do want to drink it all the time, but it's pretty high in caffeine. Remember, I'm trying to watch that caffeine level and whatnot. So anyhow, what I discovered is what you might just call espresso, I think, but they call it a doppio. Is that right? Doppio? That sounds bad, right? But like, it's just like a little shot of espresso coffee all by itself, all by its little beautiful self. And it's not higher in caffeine than other coffee. Espresso is lower in caffeine than other coffee. And so for those of us who have, blood pressure issues related to coffee, it's like this beautiful little cup of the most, and you know how you make your own coffee, or even at Starbucks, you make their coffee and it's good, but you're kind of like, it's a little watered down. Yeah, it's a little watered down. This stuff, it's like, what do they call it? The IBU units when they're dealing with the texture level of beer. Yeah. So your IBUs are like, how thick the consistency of the beer is, right? I think that's right. I haven't studied beer that closely in that way. I've studied it pretty closely in other ways. It's like that though. So the texture of these of this espresso pour with the crema, this little like cream that gets created. It's not cream; it's from the bean. Oh my goodness, it is so good. It is so good. Anyway, so I discovered that this week, and it's my new favorite thing, and it's got me thinking, what's the cheapest espresso maker I can buy? Like this Starbucks, or not Starbucks, does Walmart sell like a $20 home espresso maker, like a really cheap one, really terrible, right? But so I can like make my little thing. Anyhow, so. Okay, so we're gonna get into this question here from Rachel about moolah and money just a little bit. We'll see how far we go. She says, "I enjoyed your thoughts on writing." Oh, this was from my podcast when I just did I think I did a full hour on the writing process, which is an interesting topic, and I have spent enough time trying to figure that one out. She said, "I would like to hear you talk about money management and financial discipline." And I don't know if I've ever said somewhere that I know how to do this or not. I don't know that I do know how to do this. I do know that I do know how to not do this. Does that make sense? I do know that I know some of the things you should not do, right? Like I've learned those. And there's a combination here, and like a lot of these questions that are going to deal with the first article, you have two issues at play, right? Really even three, I suppose. You have what does the Bible say across the board, right? Period. Yeah, with the butterfly thing. I mean, that's included. You have what does the Bible say? We'll see you back in a minute, Jordan, when you get back. What does the Bible say? And then you have what does the Bible say that is law as opposed to gospel, right? Or what does the Bible say that is first article as opposed to second article? Same thing, law, gospel. And then you have what does the first article teach us apart from the Bible? That is, what does the law of nature teach us apart from the Bible? And when you're dealing with these topics, fiscal responsibility, mammon, and its stewardship, all those questions need to be answered, and they're not always the same answer. Yeah? I mean, every time the Bible says treasure, it doesn't necessarily mean money. Yeah? And so, okay, so there is in at least the Lutheran wing of America, a preponderance of an absence. And that's like an opposite thing. There's a grand absence of high value or high quality works or teachings on this matter. Like all of first article, right? Remember, this is like my thing right now, apparently. I'm not against the antinomians. I mean, I am technically. I just don't think they're the threat. I think where it exists is in a rejection of the first article. So we can scream about marriage all we want, and it's true, there are problems with not believing in marriage, but if we're not going to deal with the other issues of natural law, then we're kind of hypocritical, right? And so in that regard, we as the LCMS, Lutherans, we don't have a good number of works on first article issues that matter because they're real life issues and they're for Christians, unless there is a very clear and specific commandment about these issues, which we perceive to be being broken. Because here's the thing about money management. There's a commandment, right? There's a commandment. Do you know which one it is? It's not the fifth, and it's not the sixth, which are the two everybody knows: murder, adultery. Yeah, everyone. Oh, we know the lying one too. It's not that one either, although they can overlap sometimes. It'd be that stealing one, right? Yeah, right. 7. The seventh commandment, along with saying, like, don't take other people's stuff, aka mammon, aka money. It also says, take care of yours. Take care of yours in order that you might have it to help others with. And Paul goes this way in Ephesians, right? He's like, the thief must no longer steal in order that he might work with his hands so he might have something to share. Yeah? I mean, this is such a deep dive. This conversation can never end, in a sense. Okay, so we have to recognize that there's not a lot of works to help us with this on the ground in our Lutheran circles, if you're in Lutheran circles. If you're in Reformed circles, you probably have a little bit more. But what Lutherans tend to do, I didn't set out a pen for myself today. Here we go. I can use this one. Yeah, that's good. What Lutherans tend to do is use non-Lutheran resources, which if you're a non-Lutheran, you're like, well, what's wrong with that? And the answer is because law and gospel, man. And there's a tendency to confuse these things, to mix them up, and to not read the scriptures as though the gospel were the point, and when not reading the scriptures as though the gospel were the point, to also often miss the real point of the law. And when that happens, this can be detrimental to faith and consciences. And so we're concerned about that. We're like, yeah, Dave Ramsey's good. I don't disagree with a lot of what he says, but I can't be like, hey, just go Go read Dave Ramsey's. Great. I can't quite say that. Why did that not turn off? Okay. I can't quite say that because there are things I disagree with. Huh? So that's the challenge, especially when we come to say here now, money management and financial discipline. What does the Bible say about money? There's so many places where the Bible talks about money, and anytime you hear like a stewardship series in a big box church, they're going to start with that. They're like, Jesus talked about money more than anything else in ever. It's the only thing he really talked about. It must be important. And if you don't think that's happened, or it doesn't happen to your church, well, if it doesn't happen to your church, God bless you. I've seen it happen. In fact, when I was a pup, right? Not really like a big pup. When I was in my last year at the seminary in St. Louis, I was finally, at long last, after it took us a little while, like it was like the first 10 weeks or whatever the year, we completed our field education, right? Which is like the shipping of us out to local congregations to do whatever that local congregation said we should do. And for some it was good, for some it was bad. I mean, it kind of depends on your perspective. And then we were finally free for that last year, and you could do whatever you wanted. Some guys stayed where they were and kept helping. They were enjoying it. What I did was I tried to visit as many different congregations as possible. I wanted to see the widest possible swath of diversity that I could find. I was a little disappointed, I'll have to say, but that's a different topic. So I decided to go one time to the church. And by the church, I mean like the big one, right? Like the one that everyone knows, like they're the big successful church, and they don't do organ. let's just say organ. But everyone, you can't say that they've changed everything. They have a traditional service. Everyone insisted on this. They have a traditional service. It's on Saturday nights, so you got to go to that one. And so my lovely bride and I said, hey, we'll check that one out. And so we went, and aside from it not being a traditional service at all, it was weird. It was so strange. Like I get it. If you want the rock band, okay, I get it. I like rock and roll too. I want to be like lifted up by the music. I love music. It makes me feel good. Yay, rain or what is it? My go-to is this. Right now in the morning for workouts, I'm all about remember the name. I'm all about all I do is win. I mean, get you going. I love it. I love it. It makes your emotions fly. So I get that. What I don't get is a service that calls itself traditional, but then doesn't have any hymns from the actual hymnal, has a couple of songs that might be almost hymns and yet still repeat themselves an awful lot. No form of structure aside from singing those hymns the way you would in a revivalistic praise service, followed by a sermon, followed by prayers. How is that traditional? I don't get that. In any case, the one time we go, they're starting a stewardship series, right? Oh, there you go. And what did they talk about? I mean, this is the opening line of the series. Yeah. The Bible, Jesus talks about money more than any other topic. So it must be important. And I'm not sure that's actually true in any way, shape, or form. It might just be a straight up lie. Depends on how you count, right? I mean, if you're going to go count the actual words Jesus uses and say, based on that number, he talks about this more than anything else, the actual words Jesus uses, money may show up pretty high in, say, the noun category. I'm pretty confident kingdom is there more. You have to do some math on that. If you're going to say overall, I think words like is are all he talks about. If you're going to do that kind of logic, I'm not sure that's how it works, right? It's what is the focal point of everything as it hangs together that he's really talking about. Does Jesus talk about money? Absolutely. What does he do when he talks about money? Generally, he calls it an idol, and he tells you it doesn't matter, except for that it does. Well, what do I mean by that? It doesn't matter in that it has no reflection on or connection to your status before God or really men, except for sinful men. Right? So it is dust in the wind. It is like all things in this life, flowers in the grass, and useful for the moment, but of no use whatever for the future. I shouldn't say that. Of no use forever for eternity. I mean, it's useful tomorrow for the moment, but tomorrow's just the moment again, right? It's not an eternal thing. So it's not in a category of spirituality unless you make it so, and if you do, then it's an idol. The moment you do that. And that's not just the money, that's anything in this created order, right? So whether it's your family, whether it's your experiences, I mean, all those things kind of fall into that same category that we used to translate that as mammon. And I don't know the etymology of mammon. That's one I would love to go look up sometime. What is the etymology of it? It gets translated as money more recently. Money, unfortunately, is, I'm going to write that one down. So I'm going to talk about that now for a second as a word. Money is a difficult word. What is money? Right? I'm going to dwell on this. So, think about it for a second. What is money? What does that word mean? It's like love a little bit, right? Like, oh, I know what it is, but I'm not sure I know what it is, right? So translated as that certainly gives the word a particular narrow focal point that tends to draw our minds toward, say, green paper, right? Green paper, or maybe to some extent numbers on your computer. Is that all he's really talking about? Well, no, it's much bigger. And mammon kind of captures that. Mammon is a word, even though I don't know its etymology, I'd love to. That would help me understand it better. Mammon is a word, it describes or expresses the entirety of the world as you would control or use it, right? The mammon is your stuff. I think it's connected to a false god somehow too. It should be in any case. I'm not sure. Anyhow, so I want to pull back from that. But so Jesus does talk about mammon being this thing that the moment it becomes a spiritual thing, effectively becomes an idol and damaging to you. So that you cannot serve both God and mammon, right? He's very clear about that. God and money, well, yeah, okay. God and mammon. God and stuff. God and the created order. You cannot serve God in the first article. Now, don't get me wrong. You're not denying the first article. But if you're actually going to make the first article your God, if the only God you know is the Father who does not send Jesus Christ, right? You only have the first article. You're not serving God. You're serving, the prince of this age, I would imagine, which is terrifying in its own right. Yeah. So pulling back again to money as a word. And now we got to shift a little. I mean, I'm going to pull back again and recategorize. So we're trying to deal with, there are three questions you got to ask when you're dealing with money. One is, what's the Bible say? One is, what's the distinction between law and gospel on these matters? And one is, what does the world teach us? So I'm going to jump for a second to what the world teaches us, because I think this is helpful. And the guy who's been most helpful to me in this particularly is Naval Ravikant, who is a futurist, an angel investor, if he's not a Hindu, he's definitely an Eastern mystic teacher of sorts. Mindfulness guy. I really like this guy. I love the way that he thinks. Would clearly disagree with him on religion, but really like the way that he thinks, and he's been very helpful, particularly in my mind in the cryptocurrency space, dealing with what is this Bitcoin thing? What does it mean? Is it trustworthy? Why would we need this? All that kind of stuff. And the question, what is money, is at the very heart of that conversation. What does it mean to have something that we call money, right? And I mentioned a moment ago that we got these greenbacks. We got this paper that we call money. And this paper is so important to us that if you saw it on the ground in the middle of a busy street, you would probably go grab it, right? Like, you see the bill. If you can tell it's a 1, you might leave it there. But if you don't know, you might go grab it, right? So that's how important this paper is to us. Isn't that weird? Why? Right? That's the question of what is money is the question, why is this green paper important to us? Because frankly, if I took that green paper, out of our time period and jumped backwards to any time period, frankly, before 5 years ago, if it's one that's printed recently, I take it back and I say, here it is. People are, if someone looks at it carefully, they're going to say that's worthless. That's nothing. It's a piece of green paper. What are you going to do with it? Right? Go try to stop the Viking hordes with that. Hey, I got some greenbacks here. I got some Benjamins. Yeah, got a whole pile of them. Go away, Vikings. They're gonna be like, dude, we're burning your Benjamins and your house. Right? So it's not money in that regard, or is it? So again, what do we mean by that? Well, what is that green paper? That green paper is a promissory note, a check of sorts, written not by the U.S. government quite, but by the Federal Reserve, which is a bank that the U.S. government sort of has an interesting relationship with. I'm not going to dig into how fun that one is. You can go check out the Monster from Jekyll Island on your own. Or is it Creature? Monster, whatever it is. But long and short is, it is a loan from that bank to the U.S. that then is dispersed, which the U.S. backs as being able to be repaid by U.S. gold in theory, but not exactly. No, not really. The gold standard's not there, but we have a lot of gold and some power too. And so we say it's worth this much, so it's worth this much. It used to be backed by gold. That's a different thing. But to get to the idea, why do we trust it? We trust it because some authority has convinced us all that this thing is of value for trade, because this authority backs it by saying we will complete that value when called upon. Now, that value is no longer gold. That value is simply the word of the United States of America just saying we will complete that value, right? Which is interesting, and you can get into monetary policy and debate how valuable or how realistic a long-term economic strategy that is. That's not really the point quite at the moment, but the point is to understand that we trust it because we believe it has an authority that says it will make good on a promise to complete value. What is that value, right? What is the value that is being promised? Because this is going to get us to what the definition of money is. I love this too. I think this is really genius. So the real definition of money then, that value we're talking about is stored work, okay? Or stored product, stored value. So if you spend several hours for me doing something, yeah, and you give me that thing, I'm sorry, well, you do the thing, and then I want to say to the world, this person has given me this much value, and we owe this person that much value in return. That's what money is. Yeah. Right now we use green paper. They used to use gold and silver and precious metals. Yeah. Some places have used shells. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that this has been done in the past. But money then is a way of taking your time and shoving it into something that other people recognize as having already been given, right? Your time has already been given. Your value has already been created. And now they're going to give you some of theirs. That's what money is. It's the only way it works. Now, see, mammon's bigger than that, right? Mammon's much bigger than that. But that's money. And the question now is going to deal with money management. How do you manage this paper thing that stores the value of your time in giving it to others? Yeah. How do you manage this? And then the idea of financial discipline, which again is a different question and a different issue a little bit than, say, stewardship, the big Christian word that gets used when we talk about money. But stewardship also is also bigger than just money. The things that you are given to steward are all of your first article realities. You know, your time, talents, and treasures is like the old kind of, it's catchy, it's cute. I don't know if it's quite right. Things that are left out are things like your mind, your body. Those are part of stewardship too. Your family, those kind of things. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. We do a 5-part thing here at St. Paul every fall where we go through 5 different edges of stewardship. Your prayers, that's where we start. Stewardship. And we call that one stewardship of your time, I think. I forget how it is. I try to twist it a little bit, like a lot of things, right, to tweak it so that the stewardship of your time ends up being your prayers. Well, wait. Why is that? You know, and make you think about, well, because what's the most important thing to do with your time? Right? And then anyway, that's a different thing. The point is that it's much bigger than just money. Yeah? Much bigger than just money. All right, so you have this issue of stored value. You have the belief that it's part of the created world. You want to do it well. You want to know what the Bible says. You want to know what is wise in the world too. Not that you would think that would undo what the Bible says, but the thing is, when you study the Bible, you do realize the Bible doesn't really tell you how to manage your money. Really doesn't do that. No. There's just not much there, right? What the Bible tells you repeatedly over and over again, almost every time Jesus talks about money, what he tells you is, what I said earlier, at the end of the day, the money doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like as money by itself. How much value you have stored up in some paper, it doesn't matter. What you've done for other people, I mean, that matters. That's important. It's for the other people. Right? What you've used that money for. Have you used this earthly treasure to make friends in heaven, right? That kind of thing. That matters. But the money itself doesn't matter. He's not that concerned about it. He's concerned about where your heart is, because where your heart is, there your treasure will be also, right? And he's not really talking about getting your money to heaven. He's talking about getting, well, he's actually talking about the fact that he's going to ascend to heaven and he's the treasure. So if your heart is with him, then he is your treasure, and then when you die, you're with him, right? So you're with him also, that you may be with him, right? That's his goal in general. He wants you to have him as your God. That's why he talks about mammon and its danger in distracting you from him, right? So that's the Bible's answer to this thing. Almost exclusively. I mean, you also just have "thou shalt not steal." That's the other side of it. Yeah? So the mammon is, at the end of the day, vanity. By and large, helping your neighbor is not vanity when it helps them, but so far as you looking at it, it's always vanity to you, right? Your sin's always part of that. So that just has to be left where it is, and then, don't take other people's bat poo, right? Don't take their stuff. Yeah, that ain't cool. That ain't what God created. He wants you to enjoy the day, and he wants them to enjoy the day too. So it does say that. It says that very clearly. And I guess we could get into a little bit of taxes. He does say that the fourth commandment still stands, and when the fourth commandment means that the authority that's over you says, "Give us your money," you give them your money. Which it's really. We don't like authority, right? Nobody does. It just is part of being rebellious creatures who are fallen and hate God. Sure, okay. But then we somehow ran into this country where we figured out how to keep authority kind of functioning while getting rid of the dude who was always abusing it, kind of, for a while, right? And when they did that, it was really amazing. They did it so that they couldn't take your money anymore. Like they had that. They didn't have taxes for a long time. What happened? What are we doing? Oh my goodness. And then, I mean, I know the history, but like at the same time, it just boggles my mind. I don't know the history in this regard. So I know you can like answer my question I'm about to ask by saying, "Well, this is what happened," but that's not what I mean. What I mean is, how on earth did that happen? How on earth do you have a constitution which makes your government a certain way, that protects you from the government in lots of really good ways, including that the government can't take your stuff ever. And you have the only way to change that constitution is to have a supermajority of the entire nation, populace, change it by amending it massively. So that it only happens when you do things like, stop slavery. Right? It's big stuff. And then we actually amend it to be like, yeah, they can take our money. Sure, why not? Like we did that. What? What world were they living in? Man alive. Who was running the newspapers? Goodness gracious. Anyhow, taxes. Jesus is pretty clear, though. Well, now it's amended. It's what the Constitution says. Pay your taxes. No, you do what it says. You do what the government says. And frankly, if the Vikings come and they say, "Give us your greenbacks," then you give them their greenbacks. Because at that point, it's like your life or them. And unless you're going to fight back, you can, but then you take the consequences. That's the issue of, do you submit to authority in a fallen age? Okay, so that's a whole other thing, too. Right, so why am I doing all this? Because I want to recognize that ultimately what I'm going to say from this point on, the Bible doesn't talk about. Yeah? At least not directly. Because the Bible does talk about don't steal. The Bible does talk about the first article. The Bible does talk about how mammon is something that you have to deal with. So if we're going to talk about now actual money management and the first article, "You shall not steal" should be the primary thing we take into this. Helping your neighbor is a valuable thing to keep in mind. At the end of the day, you then have to move into an observation of math, right? And how the economy, that is, the economy means the working of the home, by the way. So this is a cool word. How the working of the home, meaning not your house, but your house within the broader community that is its home, the civilization, how that operates. And doing your best to steward, to take care of the time, the very limited resource that God has given you for the sake of the duties, which are gifts that God has also given you. And to not waste those things, right? To not waste the moment, to not waste the day. So that is a matter of wisdom. Again, does the wisdom in the Bible talk about this? At places, it does. It affirms these things. But what I just want to emphasize, I'm now going to shift a little bit here, right? So don't take this as like I can't recant it later or be like, "Oh yeah, that's more nuanced than what I said," or anything like that, right? I'm shifting here just a touch. So in this reality, I think there are two things that I would tell you, just friend to friend, father to son, right? There are two things that I would tell you that are like the most important rules for money management and financial discipline. Okay? Two. I don't know which to put in which order because I've not really thought this through. Like if I had to write the book on money, because I wouldn't write a book on money just yet. I would write a book on why my tissue boxes across the room because it's a bad idea. You're gonna have to wait. So I don't know which order to put these in. Okay. So I'm sorry for the silence. I'm struggling on that a little bit. Which of these to put this in? I think the I'm gonna go backwards in terms of maybe what the right order should be mathematically to deal with what I think is the most essential nugget of wisdom here on this thing, which again it's not in the Bible at all, but it is profound to me, and it's massively changed the way I view almost everything about time and money. Mammon. Let's call it mammon management. It's like having a pet. My pet mammon, right? It's this, and I may not say it as well as it could be said, but it's kind of a proverbial phrase. It is that the poor mind exchanges his time for money. The wealthy mind exchanges his money for time. The poor mind exchanges his time for money. The wealthy mind exchanges his money for time. Now, you can't just run out and just use that as your tool for every decision. But to understand what I mean by that is huge. It's absolutely huge. And it's sort of this. If you think about these two resources that are given to you, and if we're letting money strictly be the stored capacity of value, right? Time is not money. They're not the same thing. The stored capacity of value or work done. Which one can you always find more of? Or which one, to use Naval's language here, which is I think maybe helpful, which one is a zero-sum game and which one is not? Yeah? Is money a zero-sum game? Is time a zero-sum game? Now maybe I have to explain what a zero-sum game is. And in the midst of this, amazing, I'm going to blow my nose, I'm going to cough, and now I'm going to burp. It's great. Sorry. A zero-sum game means a game in which you have one winner, one loser, effectively, right? That there is no win-win situation in a zero-sum game. There is no way to increase the sum. You have to get to the bottom. There's only so much, right? So when you're sharing cake with your family, it's a zero-sum game. There's one cake, and when it's gone, right? If you were living on a spaceship with Star Trek life and you wanted more cake, you go, hey, computer, give me cake. And then they give you the cake, right? And there's more cake. It's not a zero-sum game because we have these food processors. I wonder what the health ramifications of eating, 3D printed food is. Is that 3D printing in Star Trek? Isn't that interesting? I never thought about that. Look at that. Anyhow. Which is a zero-sum game, money or time? And you might think, well, both. No. Time definitely is a zero-sum game. Like, the number of days and hours and minutes you got, that's it. And it's going tick, 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 like there it went. That ain't coming back. And you only got so much. Now, if we're talking eternity, sure. We're talking right now, talking management in this life. So, definitely a zero-sum game. Money's not that. You can always get more money. There's plenty of it. Right? And if you think of money not only as greenbacks, but shift money and wealth to being value produced, right? If I produce something of value, it doesn't necessarily have to take away value from anybody else. Yeah? It enhances the value of the world, and technology is only a corner of this reality. But the value created, dependent on it, can be not eternal, I would say, but like a subsisting value. The guy who created the wheel. Like, no one had to do that again. No one had to spend time to do that again. It was done. We got the wheel, right? So that's wealth. That's real wealth. Right? That's real money. And so, which one's zero sum? The one that's zero sum is time. The one you don't get more of is time. The one you can always get more of is money. So why would you take the thing that you can never get more of and trade it for the thing you can always get more of? Why wouldn't you take the thing that you can always get more of and try to make use of it to enhance the thing you can never get more of? Now, that doesn't mean quit your job. You can't do that. You do have to eat. You do need money. But the perspective shift that this gives, I think, is central. It's absolutely central to how we understand, honestly, Christian stewardship. All the stuff that I was saying earlier about, not serving mammon, not letting it rule you. Well, then it means recognizing that the real gift God has given you in this world to steward is not your money, but your time. Your time is who you are, not your money. But your time is like literally who you are. So that's the thing to be concerned most with: management and discipline. Yeah, those two words on the screen. I'm pointing at the words on the screen. Remember, where is it? Pen, backwards. Management and, way over there, discipline. Right? Time is the thing to be concerned with. And to say, why am I using my time right now for this money in this way is a very important question. So let me throw this in a direction here that maybe it will enhance this. We've been working on this in the home. I've been thinking this way for a few years now since I heard this and trying to apply it to my own life. But my beloved, my beloved wife is, and I'm very grateful for this. She's the best. She's a frugal lady. She came from a home that didn't have a lot of extra spending cash, and so she learned to take care of the cash, right? That's important. But at a certain point, with 5 kids and a husband who is too busy himself, driving 20 minutes across town, which actually is, turns into an hour and 15-minute trip, in order to return something that is worth $3, means that you were just paid $3 for, well, not even that. You're just paid, what, $2.75 an hour for that hour? Like, I get it. Like, that was money, right? But you just traded your time for your money. And why? Like, what value was gained for those to whom God has given you to use your time on behalf of, right? Now, that's an extreme example. And she wasn't usually that bad. Well, sometimes, because you have this habit, it's the right thing to do. I got to return it. I don't want to waste. I don't want to put things in landfills. Yeah, right. But, right, you're stuck in this spot, but you need to ask that question. Okay, so if I don't put this thing in the landfill and I burn the fossil fuels to drive over there instead, right? Who am I serving in this thing? And am I stewarding the real resource I've been given? So the first step to money management and financial discipline. Oh, someone didn't like me again. Oh, that makes me sad. That's such a distraction, but that makes me sad. The first piece of, now I lost it. You didn't like me, and now I lost my thought. Oh, it's awful. It was almost back. Okay, money time, change time for money, stewarding your time. That's it. So the first sort of practical thing to do. Thank you. The first practical thing to do, if you want to talk about how do I begin managing the money mammon in my life, is to ask yourself, what's my time actually worth? Not what do I get paid? You might get paid less than what you're worth, but you should ask yourself what your time's actually worth. When you have an hour, what would someone need to pay you in order for you to say, I will give away that hour? Right? We don't usually ask the question, we just do it. Or we've got the job and it is what it is. But I'm not necessarily talking about the job. I'm talking about everything. What is the real cost going on? So again, let's go back to that, example of, returning the $3 thing to Walmart across town. So the hour that was just used for that $3, that seems, a little insulting to actually only get paid $3 to do all that work. I mean, would you do anything for $3 an hour? I mean, who would take that job, right? In the U.S. right now, I don't think anybody would take that job. Anybody, even undocumented aliens, maybe, but kids, maybe, So, what if that hour was like pulled out now for a moment and you realize that hour is from say 3 to 4:15 in the afternoon, and yeah, it's the hour you would maybe be working on dinner or what have you, but it's also the hour that all the kids would be sort of either getting home from school. In our case, they'd be largely done from homeschool. An hour that you would like to maybe have to complete another task around the home, or that project you've been wanting to just kind of work on forever that sits in the corner and you'd love to get back to it. And so you now have traded that block of time for $3. What would you pay to have that block of time? Like if you had $1 billion, you had so much money in the world but no time in the world, but you wanted to do that thing with that block of time, what would you pay to get that? How much would you give up to get that? So let's call it Friday night, 1 hour, the best hour of your life with your kids. What would you pay to get that hour, to have it this week? Nothing in the way, no problems, nothing stopping it. What would you pay for that? How much would that be worth to you? That should be the number you use to value your time. Yeah, would you pay $500 for an hour with your family doing everything they want all at once in the most happy way possible? Would you pay that much for that? Well, then you're worth that much. Life's worth that much. Now, I'm not saying you can go out and get this, but I'm saying it's how you should start thinking about what you do with your time, right? And if you're doing things that aren't worth that much, they aren't worth the value of your time. Now, maybe the kids one's like over the top, whatever, but it's not worth the value of your time. So for me, the thing I keep wrestling with here, right, on my own on this, is that I desperately, perhaps even idolatrously, but I hope not, fighting that one, right? I desperately want to write a fiction book. I really do. It's like the deepest desire of my heart. It has been since I was a kid. Like I tried like 3 times, like grade school and then high school, and then I wrote one kind of in college. It was really bad. And then I've come back to others and try blah blah blah, and then life takes over. I have written other books, right? Hopefully you've read them. You should buy Echo. You can buy Broken too, but you should buy Echo. If you buy Echo, buy Echo. It's so good. Buy it. It's good. I mean it. Like I'm not being selfish. It's good. In all of that, I haven't gotten to this one like lifelong goal and dream that I have. And even like with the rise of YouTube stuff, like I realized about a year and a half ago that maybe it was even more than that. I was trying to do all this stuff with YouTube so that I could get to a place where I'd have enough of something, money, I don't know, influence, to be able to like write a fiction book because I'd have more time somehow by having created whatever value, that time was going to be given to me now, and I could now use it to write the fiction book. Excuse me with the mic. And I realized, like, that's stupid, Jonathan. That's completely backwards. So here you are chasing money, right? You're giving away your time to get enough money so you can buy some time to write some fiction. You idiot. Why don't you start valuing your current time enough that you say that fiction is the thing that is imperative, right? Imperative to me. Now, I haven't actually gotten to that point because, what's imperative to me is serving my congregation. And it continues to be the thing that will take my time regardless of what other thing I would like to do. And I'm not really at a point where I don't think God help me. I'm never at a point where I can say, well, that's just a job. That I don't want to be in that world at all. But many of you are not living with a vocation or, an income that is also tied to your Christianity. Some of you maybe, but many of you are not, right? So you don't quite have the same approach or the same need or the same assessment you have to take. So the question is, again, what's your time really worth? How much would you pay? How much would you pay to have that hour to do the thing that you think is so valuable? Then start thinking about what you're giving away, the errand that you're running to save a dime, right? The proverb that really sums us all up, by the way, is penny wise and pound foolish. That's a big part of this. That's an old proverb there. So that's one of the two things, that trading your time to get money is to trade the zero-sum reality for something of which there is an abundance. Is to give away the thing that you can never get back for something that's always there. Okay? Do you have to put food on the table and you need cash to do that? Yes, you do. So don't undo that. That's still real. But don't let that be number one in how you assess value. Get the difference there? And then, okay, so that's one. Two. Here's number two. Debt is the devil's way of doing things, right? Debt is bad. Debt is bad. We are in debt to God. Trespasses and sins, right? Sometimes translated as debts. Debts. I think that's because of sin. Like literally, sin is the debt. So it's bad, right? It's not good. Adam wasn't in debt to God. He didn't owe God nothing. God just gave him everything and was going to continue to do so forever and ever. Amen. It was great, right? Debt is the devil's insertion into this age. And is God going to deal with it? Is he going to take our trespasses and debts and put them into Jesus? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But now, let's leave the theology aside for a second, though. I shouldn't have said the word devil. That's what threw me off there. I think theologically this stands up, but that's not the point. I use the word debt as the devil more to just have you start thinking about when you're dealing with your financial responsibilities, you have no greater enemy to successful management of your resources than debt. Debt is cheating, right? The old theologians would actually say that usury is sin. I think that's just the wrong argument. Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't care. What I do know is that when you put yourself in financial debt to someone and I'm not talking about, hey buddy, loan me $20, right? Although the Proverbs does say don't give it to them, but that's a different thing. I'm talking about when you go to a bank and you say, can I borrow something? Or worse, swipe that credit card, right? When you do that and you say, I'm going to borrow, and I'm going to borrow at, credit card, what? 14, 11, 9, 6% interest? And you go to the bank for that house loan, what, 6, 8, 4, 3? Recently, got down there a little while. When you do that, you lose. You lose. The bank wins. It's kind of like going to a casino, right? That's an interesting thought. Banks and casinos are effectively the same thing. The house wins. The house wins. They look at the lights and the shiny stars, right? And the food and all the stuff going on. They win. You don't. Oh, did that one person walk out? They won. Good. But look at all the people that lost. How'd that guy win? He got lucky. And not really. They let him win, so you would look at him and think, oh, look, you can win. And then you'd go back and try yourself. That was calculated. They only let so much win happen. The only thing that has ever been broken, to my knowledge, in casinos is blackjack. And if you learn how to do it, they kick you out. And believe it or not, someone broke... this is such a cool article. It's a couple months ago I read this. Somebody broke roulette. You're like, how do they break roulette? It's a thing that spins in the ball and just lands randomly. How'd they do that? This guy, I don't know what you would call him today. We'd put him in a category of special needs sort of thing. He was a special needs kind of mind, right? Rain Man, not quite, but like on that level, mathematician. He went and he studied the roulette table at a particular place, and he watched it for years. And what he noticed was that over time, the ball's randomness eventually wore the roulette table down a little bit, so it ceased to be random. And he found out the numbers to calculate where those, by watching, right, where those slight differences in change were from the ball doing various places over, more than once. And now it's going to go more than once again. And he figured that out, and he started playing it, and he made a lot of money. That's nuts, right? But you're not going to do that. And so you go into a casino and you throw your money down, and you're going to lose most of it, usually. You might get a little, but it's because they want you to come back and lose more. So that's what casinos do. Banks do the same thing. The house wins. The house wins. It's not that you're gambling exactly. Well, you kind of maybe are, depending on what you're spending the money on. Gambling might be safer, honestly. Here's a story from my life. I used to believe when I owned a home that if I put a high-quality piece of addition onto the home, I would increase the value of the home. And when I would sell the home, I would recoup my investment. And I found out that that is just like buying a car. So I would buy a car brand new off the lot, cost so much money, and then I turn around and I try to sell it, and what's it worth? Oh, not that much money. Interesting. So is that a good investment? Does it even retain its value? And the answer is no. Which, as an aside, does cash retain its value? The answer is no. You got to know this too. Your greenbacks, your cash, it loses its value at an average of 3% a year. It's called inflation. Yeah. So you lose 3% a year of your value in cash no matter what. It doesn't even retain its value. What retains its value? Different question. We'll come back to that. So let's stick with debt for a second. You got to know when you're sitting there and you go to the bank, and if you ever do this sometime. I don't love this. I do this, and it drives me crazy, actually. It's not every bank. It's not every federal credit union. But start looking at them, especially in suburbia, and start asking yourself, could that be a church? Like the building. Could that have been a church? Does that building look like a church a little bit? Maybe a small church for like who would attend there, but like kind of looking like it's meant to be established for a long time, somewhat set apart. Everything the way it's supposed to be. Now that's marketing, but it's also true. Churches can't afford to do that, though. Why? Why can banks afford to do that? You know how expensive that is to maintain those facilities? Oh my goodness, that's so expensive. For like 5 people to be there every day? It's very expensive. So how are they doing that? Well, the answer is you're giving them your money when you borrow. That's how. Yeah? And it's a big game. It's a big game. And if you can learn that game exists, you can not trade your time to lose money in that game, but you can start using your money to try to be part of that game in a way that you win. Okay? That's called investing. So rocket science, maybe a little bit. And harder than like, well, okay, right? It's not that easy. But it starts with these mind shifts here. And again, the first mind shift is that debt is your enemy when you're trying to manage your time and your money. Does that mean you never have debt? No. I carry a little debt right now. I'll be very frank about it. I don't carry much. I've gotten out of most of it. I still have a car loan. Get this. This is impossible. I've tried to do this again and I can't do it. I have a car loan at 0%. Like, they're not making money on it. They're not making any money on it at all, ever. 6 years. What? That's why I bought it. I wasn't sure I wanted a Prius. But then again, well, it's not a bad car. And 0%? Really? I need a car. Wow. So I'm still carrying that debt. And here's why. Here's the thing. I'm at a point where I could actually pay that debt off. It's not as, we're 3 years in, halfway down, all this kind of stuff. I could pay it off. I could take my money that I have saved, and we've been working at saving for 20 years now, right? And I finally only just started investing recently, the last 4 years or so. But we've been working at that. We haven't talked about budgeting yet. You got to budget savings if you want to save. You got to budget investing if you want to invest. But we've been doing that for years. So we have some savings. I'm 41. I got to retire at some point, or I got to know I'm not going to make as much money as I make right now at some point. I need to have income. And so, we're working toward that. So I could take some of that and I could pay off this debt, this 0% debt. But this is so important to kind of get. What would I be doing at that point? Now, if that money, let's just call it $6,000, right? It's more than that right now. It's a car loan, but let's just call it $6,000. If I have $6,000 of 0% interest debt, yeah, and then I have $6,000 in the bank, and I take that $6,000 of zero in the bank, and I pay off that 0% interest debt, I have certainly removed my debt, but have I removed my losses? Now, if it's just cash sitting in the bank, actually I have in a sense, because the bank is losing, the cash is losing 3% a year in inflation. Now, the thing is, because we're still kind of both tied to cash, that's not going to shift that much for this particular loan. So it's not quite the same worry. My car loan is never going to be adjusted against me for inflation, right? So it doesn't quite fit, but it's worth thinking about, or just kind of knowing that happens in other avenues or other assets. But there's a trade-off, though. If I take the $6,000 I have in the bank and I put it into paying off my 0% interest loan on the car, then I no longer have liquidity with that money. Now I can't use that money for something else. That is, I have time that I've stored as value that I can't now use for other things. And what am I gaining by giving that up? Nothing. Because the payoff of the current loan at 0% is I'm losing nothing, right? The bank's losing everything. Right? Well, except they're still selling the car. Well, the bank lost, right? The car dealer won, the bank lost. So there's that. But it's worse than that even. Because that $6,000 in the bank, doesn't just have to sit in the bank. It doesn't have to just be there not gaining money. Now, my bank, I have 3 that I use, and for different reasons. But actually, I guess 4 now. I should include that one too. 2 of the 4, the places where the majority of my cash is, I get between 2.25 and 2.75 interest returned to me on that cash. Okay? So if I have $6,000 in the bank, it is earning me, let's go with the lowest number, 2.5 or 2.25 interest per year on that. And what's the math on that? So let's just say it's $10,000 for easy numbers. The math on $10,000 in the bank at 2.5% interest is, in the head, hold on, right? 10, yeah, $250 a year. That money, that $10,000 makes me, without me doing more, $250 a year. Now you can't live on that, but that's $250, right? So if I took that and I paid off my $6,000 no interest loan, what did I just do? I not only traded my liquidity, I gave away $250. Right? Now again, we're at $6,000. The numbers don't all quite add up the way I just said it, but the idea is there, right? So your debt has to be assessed in comparison to your ability to have your cash make money or have your wealth work for you. Now, investing can make this even better. So I'm going to give you another this is not on the level of those 2 proverbs earlier, but this is a pretty essential point to hold in your head. And it's certainly not eternal. So it could always go bad. But the way it goes bad is this. The only way what I'm about to say goes bad is the U.S. stops being a world power or economic world power. Like zombie apocalypse, third world war, this stops, right? But other than that, it has been observed that over its entire existence, the general pattern of the stock exchange, it's not just New York, but of the economy of the stock exchange centered in an American market, the general pattern has been that it gains 8% interest per year, always. Now, wait a minute. There are years of recession and depression where it lost 20%. You're right. But if you add those up with all the other years and take the average, it's at an 8% growth rate, always. So the only way you lose money in the stock market is by taking your money out of the stock market during a recession. Does that make sense? It's the only way. Now, this doesn't mean buying stocks. This doesn't mean going and playing stocks. This means buying something called an index fund, which is a particular fund set up by a trustworthy investment company that buys enough of every stock on the market in, say, the New York Stock Exchange that you own the market. So if this company fails, but this company does well, you have both of them. And the average, when that all gets put together over the course of the lifetime of this market that we live in, that's going on out there, right, is 8%. You get 8% on average. Okay? Now, compare that to, say, the 6% loan you have on whatever. Now, let's not do that. Let's do credit cards. Let's compare that to the 14% you're carrying on the $7,000 of credit cards you got, right? Which, let's hope is that low, right? Credit card is evil. So you can be losing 14% a year on $7,000 debt, right? Or you could be gaining 8% a year on $7,000 asset investment. All this is to prove a point. Debt's from the devil. Now, if you want to manage your time and your money, debt is your enemy. Are there things you need to use debt in order to do in life? Potentially. Depends on what you want to do. You need to ask that first question. What's your time and your money worth to you? What are your things you actually need out of life? And just offhand, I'll throw you a decision we've made as a family personally. You don't have to do this. This is not righteous, right? This is our decision. But we have decided at this point in time that owning our own home is not worth the debt. We would rather take that same money that we would be using for that and make it work for us. And I'm not talking about the rent. Yeah, you got to pay the rent. I'm talking about the fixing of the home. That's different, right? And I'm talking about losing that interest every year. You know, that front-loaded interest you have to pay to the bank before you even really get to work on the principal in your home loan, because the bank doesn't lose. They never lose. The only time they lose, well, they never lose. They just get the president to give them like more money, right? And even then they didn't lose. The bank doesn't lose. So for us, that was the way we decided, look, we're going to stop letting debt tell us what to do, and we're going to start trying to use debt in our favor. Okay? Now, you don't have to do it that way at all, and nor do I necessarily encourage you to do it. What I want you to do is to see how, if you're going to ask the question, as Rachel did, where am I now? An hour ago, you want to hear me talk about money management. I'm going to tell you debt will prevent you from, debt is the lack of financial discipline, and it will prevent you from good money management. When you have it, you need to manage it. You need to manage your debts. But it will stop you from managing the money in a way that allows you to be a person who, instead of losing your time to get the money, is having the money to use your time well. And I don't know why one would be a Christian and say, I don't want to use my time well. I'm not talking about sitting on a beach, sipping on a margarita every day, right? I'm talking about having the financial freedom to do the good works that you think need to be done for the world according to the Word of God. I would rather be doing that than be in debtor's prison, like literally and figuratively speaking. I would rather be able to give up that second job in order to be with my kids. And I'm not guaranteeing you that if you don't have debt, you can do that, but if you have debt, it will make it harder. It's that simple. It's that simple. I was very complex before. It was that simple now. Debt will make it harder for you to do the things you know you should do. Because you'll be bound to, debt, owing, contract, right? You will owe someone else your time. Your time. So think about that the next time you purchase something with debt. What's your time worth? Not how much you got to pay a month. What's your time worth? And how do you assess that? And put that number on your time, what it's worth to you. And then from that, make decisions about what you're going to do. On credit cards, while we were on it, I use credit cards. And I mean it like I use credit cards. Like I take advantage of them. I do not owe anything to credit cards. I make them pay me. And so I have very few of them. I use them regularly with intention and in such a way that I get stuff from it. So currently my favorite credit card is connected to Amazon.com, and it gets me anywhere between 2 and 5% in a bonus on every purchase I make with it. And so we put everything that we can possibly put onto that card, and on average we get about $75 in Amazon free stuff a month. And then we pay it off entirely. We that ends up being, when you're living in a household buying all your groceries, I mean that's like a $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000, maybe more. If I'm flying to to speak somewhere and I put that on the credit card and then get the reimbursement, whatever, it adds up. It's a big chunk of money, but we never leave that to hang over and do a moment of interest against us. Not once. We'll not do it. It's on auto pay. It pays off full amount every month automatically, and I budget so that I know what I'm spending, and so that I also have bank accounts which have sufficient funds in them that the auto pay can happen without me having to worry about whether there's enough there. Now, getting there didn't happen like this. Getting there happened over time by learning how to budget. But my point is to say this. I have credit cards, but I don't use them for credit. I don't use them for debt. I use them to get these massive conglomerate companies to pay me to get other people to pay them. So, because when you use your credit card, the company that's you're buying it from has to pay a fee to the big credit card companies, right? So I'm acting as an agent of the credit card companies to say you have to have these fees in order for me to shop from you, and then then they got to do that, and they, it's not like Amazon's losing or Chase Bank is losing or anything like that, right? So I'm acting as their agent. I'm a tax collector in that regard. But to use a credit card to actually purchase something, this is very dangerous because you're not dealing with not a low interest percentage rate. You're dealing with an excruciatingly high interest percentage rate, one that you will potentially never be able to escape from under, and certainly not if you're paying the minimum. The minimum will keep you there forever. Forever. Yeah? You don't want that. And so if you are, in fact, someone with credit card debt, I mean, you might be like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Okay, slow down. You're fine. I mean, easy. The answer is you need a plan to pay it off. You stop using it for things that you can't afford. And I mean, I get it. There are situations where you have no choice, but that new pair of shoes is a choice, right? That's definitely a choice. So you got to pay it off. Got to pay your debts off. Student loans is a whole other thing. It's in the news a whole bunch right now. It is the most dangerous debt you can take on ever because it follows you through bankruptcy, unlike all other debts. It is slavery to the U.S. government, those kinds of things. So I would counsel you to be very careful. I would not do it now myself. I did it once, but I paid it off. I would not do it. But you can just know what it is. Know what it is. It is not the government helping you. It's the government making money on you for the rest of your life, in all likelihood. Talk to someone who has student loans. Ask them. Find somebody at church who's like in their 40s, and ask them, do you have student loans? And they're gonna go like this. They go, yeah. That's what they're gonna do. And it's like, but isn't that how you got your job? Well, yeah, it is, but it's just, be careful with those things. It's debt. Debt's from the devil. All right, so I want to get over to the comments, but I feel like I should say something about budgeting since I've mentioned it before here. And good to have you all with us this morning. We've been going for an hour, by the way, and it's starting at 6 at this point, and maybe again next week. I can't go from 7 to 9, but I want to do 2 hours, so we're doing 6 to 8. And dealing with Rachel's question about money management and financial discipline. There's a lot more that could be said about this. I'm just going to say the last thing about budget, and then we will go to comments and see what you guys have been talking about. The word budget is kind of like the word catechism, right? It's like, I was like, that hurts to think about. Yeah, well, I agree. And I hate that time in the month. I'm playing with this while I talk. I hate that time in the month when I have to sit down and work on my budget. I just despise it. I put it off. Oh, it's the worst. It's like 2 hours, maybe more, maybe less. I mean, I'm managing a household of 7, so there's a lot of stuff going on. It's just awful. I hate it. But you got to do it. You don't have to do it the way I do it. And I could probably do it a little bit easier. I'm trying to always find ways to do that. But the long and short is this. You have to know what's going out, and you have to know what's coming in, and you have to be able to see those two things beside each other, right? You have to be able to see whether or not you're sending more out than you're bringing in. If you can't know that, you're in trouble. You will be in trouble. You'll be in debt. You'll be creating debt, maybe without even knowing it. So you have to find a way to know what that is. There's all sorts of different hacks for trying to figure this out. People use jars with cash in them. You only can use so much, and you have to move it from one jar to the other. So if you want those shoes, you don't get to eat this month, that kind of thing. I mean, that can be very effective. I can not really speak to those as much. I can only speak to my own pattern, right? And what I did initially that I found helpful, this was as a young man in my 20s, and this is probably why it takes me so long and I haven't been able to extricate myself from this quite yet, is that I just kept the receipts of everything I bought. And at the end of the month, I added it all up and I saw where it went. And I looked at what I made and I looked at them next to each other. And then I started thinking about where, the categories were that I was overspending and how to limit those categories, how to spend less on that thing, right? One bit at a time. Now, when you're young and single and only making a small amount of money, that's a little easier to do than now when I have, I don't know how many receipts we have a month going through this place right now. So right now, to do this, we make use of an online program. There's a bunch of them out there. I've tried a bundle of them. I wish FreshBooks was available for homes, because I like the way it's set up. But we make use of You Need a Budget, and I don't like everything about it, so don't go run out and use it. It's got some issues, but the best thing about it is it does sync with your phone and your spouse's phone, so I can be standing at Starbucks and I can buy a $2 coffee and I can Dopio, and I can punch in right there, boop, 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 that much. It saves the category, and bam, it goes into it. It even shows me how much I said I want to spend $30 on coffee this month, and then it will subtract it right in front of you, and you can see how much you have left in the month, which is pretty cool, right? That works really well. But that is all tactics, right? That is all secondary to the main idea. You need to know how much is going in. You need to go how much is going out. You have certain things that are going to go out that you cannot avoid. Your rent, you will not be able to avoid. Why is my stream quality lowered? What are you talking about? I'm plugged in straight to the internet. You cannot avoid paying your rent, your utilities. I mean, if you've got them, if you got a contract on them, you can go off grid and you won't have utilities, right? So you could. Maybe that's a plan. Maybe that's what you got to do, right? But the point being is you have certain things that are out that must go out, and then you have whatever's left. Yeah? And if whatever's left is not intentionally managed or thought about or planned, or at least goal-oriented in some way, you'll spend it. No? You'll spend it. It'll be gone. And that's where I think most people fall apart, is they definitely are paying their bills, usually, right? Not always, but usually. They're paying their bills, but you're not really thinking about what's left. And there's a couple of different ways to do this, and we haven't really even brought tithing into this thing yet, right? And, giving money to the church. Yeah. Sorry. And I screamed, hopefully this will be available later. I don't know how to fix that. If I turn off HD, did I come back? Pixelating part of the matrix. Yeah, I don't know why. There's no good reason. I wonder if my kids started watching something. I turned off that high def, so it's got to be local. No, if more of the Lutheranites, if you guys are multiple of you are having a streaming problem, then it's not you, it's me. And YouTube told me a moment ago that it had lowered the quality because of the stream, but that's gone away now. So hopefully I'm back. Hopefully you didn't lose too much there. There's like this little thing on my screen that looks like a giant mole on my arm that I know doesn't exist, so it bothered me. So it hasn't come back yet, huh? I don't know how to fix that. I can go to. I seem good now. Okay, good. Had to be a blip in the matrix, like literally. Okay, so knowing what goes out, knowing what comes in, having a plan. So you have the things that go out that you can't change, at least not soon. You can plan to change them, right? So paying off your credit card bills in the next 5 years eventually should be like a plan you have that you can't change. You're going to pay this much every month to get to this point by this time, and that doesn't change in you. That's stuck. That's an out that's stuck. But then if you don't have a plan for what remains, if you're not going to do something with that other chunk, right, and know where it's going, at least generally speaking, you will spend it. Look, I have a category. I have two. Sorry, I'm laughing at myself now. Again, I budget. I use a program. I write out what I think I have to spend in the coming month. I take everything that's incoming and I put it against these categories and I say, this is how much should go into these categories, okay? And in these categories, there is a category called money I hope not to spend. I'm not kidding. That is what the category is called. Money I hope not to spend. It's about $400. How much do you think's left every month? It's usually gone. I mean, sometimes I'll get $25 out of that thing. Yeah. Often it's over. Oh, come on! Don't lower my stream. What's going on? Turn off the HD. Come on! Don't lower my stream. That was a good moment. That was funny. Yeah, I know it's been lowered. Internet connection is not fast enough. How is that even possible? Can you still hear me at least so I can keep talking? Okay. So if you don't have a plan for that money, the chances are you're going to spend it. That's the point. So you need a plan for where that other money should go. And if you want to have some that is, like what I have, that I know I'm probably going to spend, but I'm kind of trying not to, that's fine. But it needs to be a smaller portion of the overall picture. Yeah. And that's not food, right? Like your food has to be your food. That you need to know you're going to spend that one, right? That kind of thing. And this is where then with what's left over, what category does this go into, right? What category do you put the money you give to church into? Where does that belong? Now, I would say that money belongs in things going out that you have to pay. Does that have to be 10%? Now, I'm not going to dive into Bible right now, but the answer is no. It should be. That's a good goal, but it may be impossible, and it may, in fact, even be wrong, depending on who you are, because you have other debts, you have other duties, and you should not be stealing from men in the name of God. That would be wrong, That's what the Pharisees were doing. You call it Corban, Jesus said, right? You shouldn't steal to give. So I know Robin Hood's cool. I get it. Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. So whatever number you're going to give to your church, it should be a number you know you're going to give to your church. You've decided I'm going to give this to my church, and you give it to your church every month. That should be in the outs that you know go out regardless. We're going to be at the top of those, really, right? So there's that. Now, the other thing, though, is, excuse me, because it should be right there with that. And it should be close to the same number, yeah? Or at least technically, right? 10%. That's our barometer. You should have another number that is what you are saving. And by saving, I mean investing, right? We talked about that already, but let's just call it saving for now. You have that number you should be saving. And I'm not talking about necessarily saving for a rainy day. I'm talking about saving for retirement. Yeah. And by retirement, I don't mean not doing anything. I mean, being able to not have to work for someone else to have them give you food so you can use your time in the best possible way, which might happen when you're 30 if you're really good with this stuff, right? Or 40. Why not? You know? It doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you go do the thing that you think the world needs most right now from you, because God is your God, right? So saving for that, remembering our little 8% investment thing there, think about it this way. Let's do this like a little mental experiment here. Assuming again that the world doesn't end, and so the U.S. market continues to gain 8% a year, for the next 50 years. Let's just say that you have, what would it be, the number? If you had 500,000? I gotta do pastor math here for a second, right? I gotta find the right number. Yeah. If you had $500,000 invested in index funds, then you would receive on average, an improvement of $40,000 a year in those funds. Okay? Could you live on that? Now, maybe you can't. If you're single, why not? Could you live on that? Now, if you take it out, $40,000 out in a recession year when we're down 4%, you're not going to get as much the next year. It'll affect that. So you got to think about those things too. But the point here is this. How much do you need to be able to live off of the money that you have if you know how to invest in the market? And then saving for that day so that you can do that, so that you don't have to trade your time for money. See what I'm saying? So then and maybe you want to do your job. Great, keep doing it, right? But what if you don't? What if you want to do something different? And the other thing you want to do is good. Not bad, but good. What if the thing that you have to do is drudgery and not even that good, right? Putting some money every month toward that reality is a pretty valuable thing. And frankly, I don't know how old you are right now. If you're like me in your 40s, you're probably not going to get to that point before retirement, and hopefully you can get to that point by retirement, because at some point you're going to be too old to do the work that they're going to pay you top dollar to do. And even though you want to keep maybe doing things, I don't plan to actually retire. I want to be able to not not go in the poorhouse because I have trouble walking now, right? That kind of thing. So, all right. But if you're not in my bucket or later, right, and you are like 21, do you realize this? Oh, hold on. Let's do this here. Wow, I don't know if I have a calculator to do this. You can find these things online. It's pretty spiffy though. I think it's what they call them not fiduciary. Oh, I lost the word. There's a word for it. Compounding interest. Don't take these numbers to the bank. Go Google compounding interest calculator. You'll find one that's free. You can do it in the browser, and put in, if I do $1,000 a month, don't take anything out for 20 years, what's that number turn into at 8%? Do that. See how that turns out. Do $200 a month at 8%. See how that turns out. If you're 20, figure out when that number becomes $1 million in your lifetime. It's kind of crazy how fast it'll be. It won't be by the time you're 30 at $200 a month. It'll be before you need to retire. Yeah. Compounded interest is the craziest thing ever. So I'm not going to go into depth on that, but that's what 8% per year going forever would do. So you You should. It would be wise to consider an out into something that provides you a compounding return that you don't touch. That needs to be part of your intention with the money you have every month. My dad told me this when I was 20, by the way. He just said, I wish I'd invested in the market when I was a son. When I was your age, at that time it was under 10,000, I think he said. Under 10,000? Yeah. It was like, at that time for us, I think it was at 10,000. What's that now? It's so much higher. I don't even know hold on. I can do this. I think I have an app for this. What's that today? I'm curious. Is it going to tell me? Maybe it won't though. Maybe it won't tell me the whole market. Come on. Yeah, right. So when my dad told me that, golly, man. When my dad told me that in 1996 or so, 1997, the market was at like 10.5 or just broken 10. And we were about to hit a recession, right? And so it dropped, the dot-com bubble. Maybe that wasn't even that far back. Maybe this was 2008. Maybe not, though. Anyway, so it's at 25,000 now. 25,000. That's more than doubling your money. That's like a 50% rate. Crazy. If you had money in the market when it was at 10,000 right now in an index fund, and I put $100 in when my dad said that, it'd be $250 today. And it's like 20 years, like doubled. That's compounding. Okay, it's just absolutely bonkers. So to make part of your daily budget planning, even if it's only to learn the process of putting $25 a month into something that is going to be in an index fund forget that, into a savings account that pays you 3%, so you're not losing that inflation every year, right? Even that, do something. Now, to get there and paying off your debt, you got to have your debt payment going. To get there, though, you have to know what is going out. And when you track then with your receipts, everything that's going out, you have to be able to ask what doesn't need to go out so I can do these things that are wise, right? Where can I stop? Now, if you find yourself in a situation, and these do exist, where there is no answer, well, I'd say talk to your pastor, honestly, first. And then you may need to talk to some sort of, financial advisor. You want to be careful with that word, though. That's not always the same thing. You're going to need some help with an accountant, right? You got to find a way to change that reality. And I'm not a master on bankruptcy. I don't think bankruptcy is a thing we should try to do, but it may be the only option you got, right? It can get you out of the debt to some extent and reboot you so you can actually follow through on what you owe. But if you're not there yet, right, then start by, again, figuring out how to track what goes out and compare it to what comes in, and make sure less is going out that's coming in. Make sure that of that's going out, some of it's going out to you. To you. Yeah? All right. I think, man, the stream quality, I don't know. Hopefully you guys are you even here? I hope you are. Anyhow, I'm going to go back and look at some of the questions here. Wow. That was a long time. I was not expecting to go quite that long. And don't take anything I said in that segment as the word of God. What I'm telling you is that you can study the first article about money management, mammon management, that at the heart of this is time management, and that time is a gift from God to you, and you want to make your money serve that for the sake of your neighbor, and that there are tools for that you have available to you in the present age that the serf living in the Middle Ages did not have. You can still act like the serf owned by the companies and all that stuff if you want, but you don't have to. Yeah, and it starts with a budget, and it starts with understanding debt and making debt work in your favor. Yeah. 2 books. Let me give you some books. Wait, can I do this with there's a way to do this. Hold on. Window, comments, reaction, overlays. Oh, they're right there. Okay, text. Can I do this? Oh no. Is it still streaming when I did that? I don't know. Let's do it. I will teach you. And I'm what happens if I do this? There you go. So the first book's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Seth Remy, I think. And it's like the crassest, most cheesy, silly name ever. But it's sold because he named it that, which makes sense. And the thing is, it's super brief. and it is a series of step-by-step steps on how to manage your funds. It's really good. It's super, super good. And he makes fun of the title. And it's not like the title is actually that real. He makes fun of it. But what he wants is for you to learn how to manage your funds. So that's one. All right, and the other one, you got to be careful with this one too. I don't even know if I spelled it right. The other one's called Unshakable by Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins is a fascinating man to me, and genius. Somewhat dangerous spiritually, I think, ultimately, but genius and wise on many levels. And his book Unshakable on money management, basically, and on investments is bar none the best. Like you're going to come out of that thing a master in everything I just talked about if you read it carefully. So I can't recommend either of these highly enough. Probably start with it will teach you to be rich if you're like in a debt-driven situation, you're struggling, you're trying to survive, you don't even know where to start. If you are in a place where you are doing okay, but you've never invested and you know you're not really planning the way you should, I'd say go to Unshakable. And those I would recommend before I would send you to. I did notice in the comments you have a bunch of Christian resources out there. I said this way at the early part. I don't know. I don't know those resources, but the fact of the matter is that you don't have to be a Christian to manage your money well. You don't. And I don't know why we would trust someone who is a Christian about money more on whether 2 + 2 = 4 or not. In fact, I tend to think that's a little dangerous because what happens a lot of times in the Protestant world is that they try to be theological about their math. And you can't be. Because while the Bible does talk about money, it really doesn't care about how much money you make. It cares about you not worshiping your money. So how would it ever teach you to be financially solvent? It's like, no, just pay your debts. I mean, that's it. Don't steal. Right? It's not going to teach you this stuff. So does Dave Ramsey do that? Does the other guy, Seth Burkert? Fine. I don't know. I don't know enough to say. But what I do know is that the errors that do exist in these two books are easier to spot than heterodoxy is in a squishy false teacher. I know that. So I would rather deal with the devil I know. Now, for me personally, the Protestant false teacher, I know him too, right? But do you? So I would rather have you go to somebody who, like Tony Robbins, there's going to be some like power positive thinking stuff in there. Nothing like you're going to make the universe obey you. None of that stuff. It's just going to be like, you can do it, right? Yeah, I mean, you can spot that. It's not that hard to spot, and some of it's not wrong. So I prefer the devil I know in that regard. And I'd rather have you know this devil, you already do in that regard, than send you to a supposedly Christian resource which may or may not actually even give you the real stuff, right? I think most of what Ramsey and Burkhardt talk about is don't be in debt, which I'm fully in agreement with. Duh. I know Ramsey is really big on don't use credit cards ever. I'm like, okay, but they pay me, so I'm just going to ignore that part. That's about all I know. Yeah, budget, you need a budget. Same kind of stuff. This is bigger than that, I guess I would say too. I don't, and I haven't gone through all their programs. You know, Financial Peace University. I'm sure people go through that and it's valuable to them. So I'm not trying to decry that. I'm saying that if I am going to teach you, here's what I say is easy. Here's the 80-20 rule in practice. You can go to an 8-week course, or you can get a cheap book and listen to it. No, both of these should be available on Audible, by the way. And Unshakable on Audible is really quite good, quite well done. It's read by someone else because Tony's time is so valuable to him. That guy's so wealthy. His time is so valuable to him that he doesn't do his own book readings, not because like he could, but his time's just worth more to do other things. And they don't do that for authors a lot, right? Unless they're just not capable of doing the book reading. So anyhow, yeah, read those books. Can you see it if I do that? Is it still there? Oh, sweet, it does that. All right. So I'm going to make this go away in just a moment. I'm going to scroll through here again. That's awesome. She may not even be here. Sarah came to when I taught this summer. Faith is stronger. You have more questions. I appreciate that, Sarah. That's cool. Thanks for joining in this morning. More way back, way back. Top result. I was asking about the etymology of mammon. Looks like we got Noah. Check this out. From Latin, mammona, ecclesiastical Greek, mammonas, Aramaic mammona, riches or gain. So gain. gain. That's an interesting. That's helpful, right? To think of mammon as gain, to have more than before. Earnings would be another way to say it. Earnings. Interesting. The false god earnings. That's got justification implications, doesn't it? I think it does. So thoughts about Larry Burkett, I just kind of answered that. I haven't looked at that stuff at all, and my only exposure was when I was like 19, 20, and an evangelical, and they were like, don't do debt, you should read this. I was like, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to do a budget right now. I think that's what I'm going to do. And that was it. So I have no idea with his stuff. Close to my second question about the Second Amendment. That was back when I was talking about the creating taxes that we did, which is crazy. What do we do if they come for the guns and property? Can a Christian fight back because of the Constitution? Yeah. Jeez. Thanks, Jordan. I should just say, I didn't hear you. I mentioned in my podcast released 2 days ago that I listened to, I'm still not even done with it, Joe Rogan interviewing Dan Crenshaw. It's a great interview. All over the place. Crazy stuff. And Rogan, as he is wont to do, starts talking about pot, and then starts talking about this to this congressman about pot and legalization, all this stuff, and then starts pressing him on whether or not he's done it and how much he's done. And Crenshaw's great. He's like, I'm sorry, the mic, it's I can't hear you. What was that? I can't. And he wouldn't answer the question, but so it was hilarious. It was very funny. So did I make that go away? Where'd it go? So the Second Amendment, and what do we do if they come for guns and property? Yeah. You're in a pretty difficult situation there, is what I would say. And you have a choice to make, is what I would say. And your choice is this. Do you believe that the Constitution not only is your right, but is such a law of the land that it's your king? And because it's your king, you are duty-bound, oath-bound to defend it in such a way that you would take up arms against those who are trying to take away your arms. And if you are convicted of that reality, then yeah, you're going to fight back. If you believe that the Constitution is the law of the land insofar as it is interpreted in the present, and that the present practice is the actual law of the land and the actual authority which God has established over you, which has shifted a little since, say, Lincoln, states' rights, stuff like that. And they come and they say, we're going to take your guns away. And especially, even more so, if they come and it's the states that take your guns away, not the feds, but the states that takes your guns away. And you're convicted that that's their right and their duty to do that, well, then you're going to give them up. And I would say that if you're in either of those two parties, you really don't have a right to call the other person sinful. You can disagree with them vehemently. They're wrong, right? But to say you can't be a Christian and pick either side there, I'm not sure you can do that. Because both would have an argument from the Fourth Commandment on why they're doing what they're doing. Now, if you're not going to give them your guns just because you don't want to get rid of your guns and you like them, that's not as good. And if you want to take the guns, give up the guns, or have everyone else give up the guns just because you don't like them, that also would be not a reason. Right? It should be based upon the actual authority. And we are in this weird situation where our authority is not a king, but is a piece of paper that in theory we are all agreed upon is it constitutes us, like literally, right? And it is executed by a presider, and the presider is to preside over Congress. So he has a vice presider to do that. And then he goes out and he runs the execution of the laws of the land under the supervision or the watchful eye of the courts. How that all works, man, I mean, where the real authority lies, what's your real duty, I don't think it's that easy. That's not an either-or question. The more important thing to reckon with is, did I make that go away again? I'm sorry. The more important thing to reckon, because I should make Rachel go away if I'm not talking about guns. Rachel wasn't asking about guns. The important thing to really answer with this question is, first, what do you believe the Fourth Commandment teaches you about the Constitution? Right? Is it as written what we are to do, obey, defend? Or is it more like guidelines? To quote Barbosa, as we actually practice constantly right now. We're in several wars that were never declared by Congress, violation of the Constitution, right? But they're wars. They're happening. It's our country. It's not going to stop, right? So, which ones are our real country? you want to decide that in your head, yeah, and recognize that both are valid positions at the end of the day. And then if you're going to act upon that against the authority that's over you, then as a Christian, it's also your duty to take the consequences which come. Right? So you've got a wicked king. Let's put it in this context. You got a wicked king, and you're the headsman. Your job's to kill people. That's what you do every day. You cut their heads off. It's the pay. I'm trading my time for money, but I gotta do it. Gotta put food on the table. Got the kids at home. Need a new straw bed. Yeah. So you're the headsman. And then the king tells you to now, today, kill this man who you know for a fact is innocent because you saw the crime and you know that the crime wasn't done by this man. And so you say, I can't do it. King, I can't do it. The king says, you're going to do it or I'm going to kill you. I'm the king. God is my authority and you're under me. Do it. And you say, no, king, I won't do it. And you get killed. Be ready for that. Right? If you're going to stand up against the authority as it's being acted, whether right or whether being abused, tyrannical, you just have to deal with the consequences of the fourth commandment still being a reality, practically speaking. This is what the apostles do when they say, you can throw us in jail, you can flog us, we're going to obey God rather than you. Right? The authority was still used against them and they suffered. So it's not as though believing that God's authority is present guarantees it will act on your behalf. The prince of this age, the world of the law, is still out there trying to chase down the church first, right? And then also trying to suppress all humanity lest they find the church. Why do we kill babies? Because we don't want them to become Christians. That's why. That's why the devil does it. Huh? He doesn't want them to find Christ. And so cut them off before they can. So, with that said, in this situation, what do you do if they come for your guns? You have to ask that question. Do I want to go to jail? Do I want to fight? Do I want to die? What about my family? How do I feed my kids if I'm dead? That kind of thing, right? Do I want to flee to the hills, go off grid? Right? If you're going to do that, you might want to start. Just saying, it's going to take a little while to get there, I think. Yeah, you have to be able to answer that. What would I do? I don't know. I honestly don't know. We're not there yet. And I intend to continue to voice my belief that law-abiding citizens need guns because the government needs us to have them so that we might protect the whole area, the world, the locality in the event that we need protection. We live in this bubble of believing that no one's ever going to come here and fight us. Now, what happens when that happens? Don't you want your citizens ready to defend? I think you do. Joe Rogan and Dan Crenshaw were talking about this a little bit, and they mentioned Switzerland and what was the other countries? 2 countries where there's like almost no crime. Like no one breaks into your house. And the reason, by and large, is because the vast majority of the populace is not only trained and armed, but trained by the government. Like Switzerland, they train their people and give them a gun and say, keep it in your house. Know how to use it. It prevents crime. Crazy. They just don't have it. England, where it's like you can't have a gun, people will break into your house during the day while you're there. That kind of crime happens. Interesting, isn't it? You take that to a whole other level of like invasion or trying to deal with the fallout of some sort. I mean, if there were like bombs actually dropped here and even if no one's coming, the chaos that would happen, the looting and all that, don't you want like your local police to be able to rely on other men in the area, women too, sure, whatever. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that, but whatever. Whoever's got a gun and can use it. Women can use the gun. I just don't want them on the front lines. Whoever's got a gun and can use it, don't you want the good people to have that? I mean, so that's, to me, that's like the argument I'm going to keep making. The guns are tools for good men to stop bad men with, and that we want all our people to be good men, and then be able to stop bad men. Do you know what kills more than guns in America? And this was a Joe Rogan thing too. This is crazy. Maybe it was just assault weapons. No, all that language is all just nonsense. An AR is not an assault rifle. It's the name of the company. I don't know. I don't want to get the fact wrong. It was such a cool fact. Somehow, I think it's gun violence. Or maybe it's mass shootings. It's not mass shootings. Mass shooting is anything that's more than 2 people. So that's not like, all these big ones we've seen. But it's hammers. That was the answer, though. So hammers. People are killed with hammers more often. Ban hammers? I was also very pleased to see Dan Crenshaw kind of go my answer with Joe on, what's going on? Why are these mass shootings happening? What can we do about it? And his answer was, it's not about the law at this point. This is about Columbine and copycats and disenfranchised people who are getting fame by doing this, that they are often in abused and or sick situations and homes. They are often doped up in multiple kinds of ways. They are driven by radical ideologies that do not have at the root of them the love for their neighbor. And I just got to sit here and say, like, look, the issue here is we don't believe humans have value. That's the issue. It's a culture of death. You think you're going to go and abort as many children as we do, and then the ones who survive are going to be like, oh, life's worth living. Oh, those other people out there, they're humans. They're not monkeys. You really think, it's just crazy. So Crenshaw didn't quite say it that way, but I was really, really glad to see he did go that direction. Like, this is a deeper issue than, whether or not we have the right restrictions on the right kinds of weapons. You know what they do in countries where you can't use a gun to do a mass shooting? They drive vans down crowded roads at, party events in the city. And they kill 20 people that way. You know what they do? they hijack an airplane, fly it into a building. It's just the wrong fight, right? The fight's a spiritual fight. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have any gun laws. We have a lot of them, actually. You should study them. I'm saying that you're not going to stop the evil men by punishing the good men. That's what it comes down to. All right, so let's see here. What time is it? 7:47. Rolling forward. Rearranging food replicators. Oh yeah, that was fun. Hyper-sterilized food. I'm going to jump to the end here, see what you guys are talking about right now. Practical level. Felicitous inconsistency. Oh, that's an interesting question. Cool. Paul. What's up, man? What is the difference between a felicitous inconsistency, error, false teaching, and heresy? All right. Cool question. I don't know that any of those should count as categories. And what I mean by that is this. A synonym does not make a new category, right? So a word, English is so cool. We have multiple ways to say stuff. It's great. It's the best thing ever, right? So I can say that it's cold and I can say that it's cool, right? And there's different meaning behind both those in different directions. That's awesome. So some of the way that we talk as Christians and or theologians these days in English is related to that more than to actual categories where there's a real difference. Right? So in all technicality, there is no difference between an error, a false teaching, and a heresy. It's the exact same thing. Heresy means false teaching, and false teaching means an error. They're all the same thing. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't recognize that not all errors are the same, and not all errors are created equal, right? That you can make an error which is a lie of the devil that he's planted in your mind, that in fact not only is not as big an error or as dangerous an error as another error, which is much bigger, but may even not even harm you. Okay? So that's the felicitous inconsistency. The felicitous inconsistency is the error that you believe, which is the false teaching that you believe, which is the heresy that you believe, that you kind of accidentally don't believe. You're accidentally not hurt by it. Now, it's not that you don't believe it, it's that you don't believe how it undermines what you do believe, right? I don't know if I can come up with an example really. Oh, yeah, very easily. Okay, so you believe that the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ is not in the bread and wine of the Lord's Supper. That's a heresy. It's a heresy. Straight up. False teaching. Lie of the devil. And yet you still believe that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. He is your one and only Lord and Savior. He has justified you by grace through faith alone. And when you die, you shall go to be with him. Well, you believe that too. Okay, well, those two things don't line up. Okay, if you do the math, if you do all the Bible math, they don't line up. The non-Jesus being present in the Lord's Supper undoes everything else you think you believe. But you don't know that. You never did the math. Okay, that's the felicitous inconsistency. Happily, you didn't do the math. Don't do the math then. Actually, do the math and then repent of the false teaching. That's the real thing to do. So, will a felicitous inconsistency never do the math on you? No, it might. It might without you even knowing it. So their danger is still. It's not like it's happy. Go ahead, continue being a heretic in this way because it just can't possibly harm you. No, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. When you believe in justification but have nowhere to go to get it or to be assured of it, eventually you start to doubt your justification. That's just the way it goes, right? And the Lord's Supper is there, so you can't do that. Well, okay. So it's not as though it can't harm you. It certainly can. It certainly will. Not certainly will. It will harm someone. Huh? But it's still an error. It's still a false teaching. It's still a heresy. Heresy now, as a word, we don't use this word much because we don't want to be mean. I'm like shifting my mindset on this, by the way. I did a tweet recently about like, what if we started thinking, like honestly just tried, not for the world, but just for me. I'm going to try to start thinking that closed communion is the coolest thing ever. That it's not a doctrine I don't like. That it's not something that bothers me. That it's actually really awesome. What if I believe that? Because I don't. I really don't. I believe it's true, and it sucks. And it sucks because of having to deal with it. And it's a pain in the rear, and nobody likes it. Everyone's mad. And who are they mad at? You, pastor. That's who they're mad at. All because you won't let their... I'm sorry. I was going deep there. You won't let their 8-year-old Roman Catholic grandson commune. The first fight I ever had over closed communion was at the first parish I ever had. It was the first conversation I ever had in a Bible study. And with kids who were 11 and members of the congregation who can't commune, and I was being told I had to let an 8-year-old Roman Catholic commune. I'm just like, what the? Anyhow, what if we stopped pulling back from the mean words and started believing the mean words were awesome? And I don't mean the way that we want them to be mean. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not going to hide from what the Bible says. Okay, so heresy. We don't use the word heresy because in the early church, heresy was a word used to describe those who had committed an error which actually put them outside the church. The error that they had, this one, was so big that you could not believe it and have a felicitous inconsistency. It's impossible. Can't be done. You cannot believe Jesus is not God and still believe Jesus is God. Can't do it, right? Salvation is contingent upon Jesus being God, straight up, right? So heresy is a word that got used for that, and so we've tended to not use that word to refer to other errors. However, before that happened historically, heresy was a word that simply meant an error. It meant to teach what God does not teach. Any lie of the devil. Anything the devil says, honestly. Anything the Bible does not say. Excuse me. I shouldn't say it does not say. Anything the Bible says that we say it doesn't say. Right? Or something the Bible doesn't say that we insist on and say the Bible does say. Words we make up and put in God's mouth. When he's against the prophets, he did not send. All that kind of thing. So heresy meant all this stuff, but now it kind of doesn't mean that the way many people use it. Okay, and there's a word you didn't put up here called heterodoxy. Let's throw that one up here. Now you know how to do this. I can do it a little faster. Oh, that's pretty sweet. Heterodoxy. So heterodoxy is a heresy that is also a felicitous inconsistency, right? So it's a false teaching and an error that doesn't immediately put you outside the church because it's not a denial of the faith at its most obvious level, but it is bad enough to be more than just, oops, I made a mistake, right? It is false glory is what the word literally means. Doxology you can hear on the back end of it. And hetero meaning heterosexual means, we call it straight, but it's actually the other way around, right? It means to be different because you're twisted differently. You're focused a different direction. You're not straight in the word. Literally doesn't. Orthodoxy is straight. Heterodoxy is not straight. So you have orthopedics working on straightening your back, right? That kind of thing. So it is unstraight glory, right? Curved glory, twisted glory. Where is it curved? Back on yourself because we're curved in on ourselves. So we use that word to kind of be, it's like the nice heresy, right? Oh, they're heterodox instead. So they're not outside the church, but they are still false teachers. Is felicitous inconsistency there? Felicitous inconsistencies does not occur in the theology itself. There is no happy mistake in the words or in the truth. The felicitous inconsistency happens by means of, alone, the faith of the individual who is heterodox, who yet has not become a heretic. Now, I'm using the new terms of that, by the way. You could say it as in the person who is a heretic, believing in false teaching, who is yet still a believer. So we just don't usually use that word that way. But it really should, I think. I don't know if I like this distinction at all. I don't know if it helps us. I don't know if it helps us to say that, denying the baptism of infants is not heresy, it's just heterodoxy. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I mean, what's the devil want us to do? Right? Uh, the devil wants us to not believe in baptismal regeneration. That's what he wants us to do. Then we would have less faith as a result of this. Right? Well, then that's heresy. Yeah? But by that, we just don't want to. The problem is if you say that, people are going to think you're saying that Baptists aren't Christians. And see, that's not there either. That's why it's a really good question. And why the word error right there, right, in the middle. Can you see my mouse? I can't. I can see my mouse. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Error and false teaching are probably the better words because they're the words the Bible uses. And we shouldn't distinguish them as if one is not the other. If it's heterodox but not heretical, that doesn't mean it's not an error. If it's an error, that means it's false teaching. If it's false teaching, the Bible says you should flee from it. You should avoid it at all costs. It also says it comes from the devil, and it will attack and destroy your faith, right? All of it. Thankfully, God is so good that when we do this, he still saves us. He's sufficient enough to overcome it. The words about the resurrection of Jesus and grace are stronger even than our false teaching that undermines them theologically, that is or I should say dogmatically, as we confess it in the math of theology that we do, but is not enough to stop the people on the ground in these heterodox / erring / false teaching churches, not enough to steal their faith entirely so that they remain believers. Yeah? Cool question. Hopefully that helped a bit. Is there a number estimate for too much? Tracy, are you still here? I can try to do this one, but I'm not sure. Oh, no, you're asking Annabelle a question. I don't know what Annabelle said. I'm a program of the Matrix. That's fun. Yeah, I was going to tweet some Matrix today, by the way, off of somebody else. Consolidating debt. That's what you guys are talking about. Back on that. It's more. So I've not had to do a lot of this. I would be so take my advice with a super grain of salt on this one. But if you have a great amount of, I don't know if it matters how much debt you actually have as a number. It's what is it consolidating to? Because banks will charge you a fee to consolidate sometimes, right? So it's like, I used to get, I still sometimes will get these things, right? The credit card company, because they know you're paying your bill every month, will send you like these checks. And they're like, you have a line of credit. You can write this check. You can take your other debt, pay it off, and get it on this check. And then you'll only have a 8% interest on it then, which I'm like, well, I don't have anything that's bigger than that. So why would I do that? But if you do look at the fine print of that thing, it's not just the 8% that you're moving it to. So let's say you had a 14%, you can get it to the 8%. You could do that with that check if you had a high enough line of credit, but then they're going to charge you 3% immediately that is not part of that 8%. Like there's a transfer fund of it's going to cost you 3% to get there. So depending on the number, I mean, that can be a pretty big number, right? So the fine print's pretty important, and I imagine Annabelle has something in mind that's connected to that. You want to read the fine print. You don't want to trust the bank. I don't know how else to say that. You need an advocate. Yeah. And I mean, Tony Robbins in his book will talk about this. Look, it just says heterodoxy underneath my name. This is awesome. There you go. Someone meme that. Yeah, right? I know. In his book, he talks about, the fiduciary responsibility of people who are called financial advisors. And he's got more details on this, and I haven't memorized all this, but someone who makes their living as a financial advisor, I think they have to be called a fiduciary. Unless they are fiduciary, there's a particular thing that they have. They are not by law required to act in your best interest. Just let us sink in slowly. They are not by law required to act in your best interest as they advise you to do investing with your funds. Let it sink in. Remember that you believe in original sin, which means that humans don't act in the interest of others by nature, unless compelled to by the law, and that they're not required to. And think twice about that stock he said he should buy, because he might just be getting a bonus for as many as he sells. Yeah? So again, Tony Robbins' book Unshakable has more on this. and listening to a fiduciary rather than a financial advisor and whatnot, and what all those loopholes are. Your accountant is a little bit different than that. So if you're dealing with debt consolidation, but point again, the banks are making money, so be very, very careful. That's the point. All right, so Gorman, you just showed up, man. I'm done. I'm getting out of here. You want to hear me talk? Am I done? Can I go? The pros and cons of homeschooling in a podcast. Well, Meredith and I were out last night chatting. Finally got a date. Oh my goodness. First time in maybe 2 months that we got a date. And we went out and we sat down and we each had a couple lists of things like, oh, we haven't talked about these things. And one of them was, hey, we got a podcast on parenting again. What are the topics we need on there? And so that was not one. We didn't have a lot of time to do this brainstorm, but that's when I'll try to get on there. Just talking about pros and cons of homeschooling. Yeah, it's a good thought. Good thought. Tracy's still here. Rock your baby to sleep. Oh, yeah, cool. Well, I kind of answered your question, but I don't know enough to really answer. Paul, you're welcome, by the way. What Dean is afraid of. Oh, there we go. I fear knives more than guns. Amen. Dude. Okay, so this is interesting. Now, I don't know where I learned this. I think this is from Hardcore History. I think he has a big segment of this. I don't know which episode it's in. The bayonets that you see on like muskets and rifles from the last 150 years, the knife that's strapped on the front. What history has shown is that before people will use them, they run away. Right? So you have a group of guys who don't run away, they don't break, unless they have to use the knife to fight. And he gets into this like there's a human instinctual gut reality going on there. It's not just about I don't want to stab him, although some of it is. If I stab him, now I feel what it's like when I get stabbed, or I risk it. As opposed to, shooting, it's like the drones a little bit, right? You're further away. Which one is it? It's not in one of the ones about modern warfare. He's dealing with ancient warfare. It's got to be the Kings of Kings series. And he's dealing with ancient warfare and like what it was like to wade into battle with a blade, right? Dear heavens. So I'm with you, Dean. I mean, yeah. Interesting, too. So Dan Crenshaw, yesterday, this week with Joe Rogan, he talked about how in a fight, now he's a Navy SEAL, right? But in a fight, he considers a gun more dangerous he considers a knife more dangerous than a gun, and a handgun more dangerous than a rifle. Okay? Now, by fight, he doesn't mean warring across the street. He means like we're in a room right now. Like someone just walked into my room. I've got a rifle. He's got a knife. Dan Crenshaw, Navy SEAL, says, I want the knife. Okay? I've got a handgun. He has a knife. He says, I want the knife. Now, he's trained, I'm not, turn around, all that. His point is, if I have a rifle pointed at you and I'm not far enough away to get a good shot, all he's got to do is get his hand on the barrel, and he actually has the rifle. And he said, if you control the barrel, you got more control of the gun than they do. Okay? Can I do that with the knife? No, I can't do that. Right? So that's the idea. This is why the handgun for him is more dangerous than the rifle. The rifle's got a longer barrel, easier to grab. Yeah, handgun, I can do this kind of thing, right? So that's interesting. Yeah, you're spot on. Joe Rogan in another episode, I'm all Joe Rogan, I guess, right now. He convinced me, you know what you should really fear? You ready for this one? You should fear wearing a tie. Yep. Yeah, let's go over here. Tie it up. You should fear that. And I'm not talking because you're a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old boy and you're like, this hurts. No. Like if you are in a moment where someone wants to hurt you and you have a tie on, they win. Go put a tie on, guys. Go put a tie on. Just grab a hold of it when it's on and like kind of pull a little bit and then think, how would I stop this? There's no way. They got you. Yeah, it is like literally a kill me handle. Yeah, and if they know how to fight at all, hand to hand, they really got you. Now he's an MMA fighter. He thinks about these things. It's got me thinking about it recently too. I was like, I don't wear them anyway. I got the collar right and all that, but yeah. Why do we do that? Well, gentlemen don't have to fight. Well, that's probably why. So yeah. All right. Ties are a slip knot, but a bow. Oh, yeah, right. He's talking about the long tie. Yeah, bow ties. Bow tie, whatever. I don't know. Yeah, good stuff, guys. I'm going to go ahead and take off. So next week, should be back. Same bat time, same bat channel, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Monday morning chill. Still working on a bunch of other things like logos. I mean, I kind of got a little logo going on. The newsletter, if the Lord is good to me, will release on the 1st of September or close to it, and Monday, the 2nd of September. And the newsletter is going to be initially not about everything and anything. It's going to be focused upon the lectionary, in particular the lectionary Old Testament focus I'm doing for the year, but then also it is my hope to weekly have a short video, that does a very brief overview of all the lectionary texts. So I'm going to try, it's the goal. We'll see. Don't hold me to this, please. But the goal is in about 8 minutes, 9 minutes, we're going to look at the 3-year lectionary, all 3 texts, the 1-year lectionary, all 3 texts, and the Old Testament lectionary I'm doing, all 3 texts. It will be high points, how to preach it, how to hear it, boom. And so what I'm going to be doing, though, is you will not be able to get to that video if you're not on the newsletter. You with me? So if you want that video, you got to be getting the newsletter. The link will be there. Right? It'll come in your mailbox. You click the link, boom, there's the video. I'm trying to get you to sign up for my newsletter. Yeah, but that's there. That's coming. And Lord willing, I got to figure out a couple things and lots going on. And I don't know if you can see. Did you notice, by the way? Remember how I was talking about there was that one video, all the mess. It's missing? Where'd it go? The bookshelves. We are completely changing the way our house is laid out at the moment, which is chaos. I got to go do that right now. So yeah, sign up for the newsletter. Link below. Podcast was just out this week. I went mad on a number of things. Talked about falling off the horse of, what did I just do? Falling off the horse of evangelical preaching and getting into first article things and talking about them and the dangers theologically. So worth listening to there. I forget the other one. If you're already signed up, it means you were signed up for my old newsletter probably. So you can get mad and not sign up, or you can be just signed up already. What was it? What was the other thing? Like, subscribe, share. Are you guys sharing any of this stuff? I mean, Saturday morning chill is a little hard to get people to watch, but share it. Say I talked about money or something like that. It's pretty important that stuff gets shared if it's going to grow. And if you listen to the podcast and you want it to grow, heading over to iTunes and leaving a review, leaving 5 stars on that or what have you. That's all very helpful, very important. So like, subscribe, share. Oh, what's the other one? I have a whole list now. I made a list of things I'm supposed to say every time. I need to make a video that does it for me, which is like even more work. But it's like 15 things I need to tell you every time. Right? Go buy my books and don't pick your nose and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, if it literally won't let you sign up, it means you're already signed up, right? Which means that you either already did it or you did it way back when. So like 2 years ago, I had another newsletter, and you're signing up for the same list, right? I'm kind of going to start with the same list. So that'd be why that's like that. So yeah, and the link is below in the description of the video. I forget what else. There's one other thing that's like really important to say. I don't know what it is. Oh, Patreon. That'd be it. Patreon. Yeah, if you like what I do, let me know it. It's part of my income at this point. Makes the world run on this end of things. So it's based on the podcast. $1.25 a podcast. It effectively adds up to $5 a month. So whether or not you listen to the podcast, joining on Patreon for $1.25 is going to say, hey, Pastor Fisk, you can have $5 a month as what was it? Value that you deserve for the time that you gave to the work which has benefited me. That's what the money would be, and then I would be able to turn around and use that stored value time to do other things I consider valuable, which there's a lot of things I want to do in this world, and they're not just buying stuff for myself, although I didn't buy that. That was given. All I do buy stuff sometimes. Yeah. All right, cool. So Patreon at patreon.com/RevFisk, I think is what it is. Link is also below. You guys are too much fun. I just enjoy hanging out. Like, you give me energy. This is great. Patreon's in your budget. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. We will catch you all on the flip side. Happy Saturday morning. Rock on.